Sean, you know that thing I do when I introduce you, myself, and then the show?
No, I usually zone out pretty bad.
Well, I hope you're paying attention because I'm not doing it.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Go for it.
What's happening? Oh, you want me to introduce the show to the people?
Yeah. I want you to do the thing that I do.
Okay. Well, we have this podcast here. Let me look at my notes real quick. It's called The Unnecessary Gentleman.
Yep.
And my name is Sean Doyle, and I'm just so excited to be here with the Snoopocalypse, the destruction of the planet over here. Snoop, how are you?
I'm really good, man. Thanks for that intro.
You're welcome.
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I just want to go ahead and set the tone for the rest of the episode because I'm not really prepared at all. So you're going to be doing a lot of the talking. I'm just getting you warmed up for it.
Ooh, I'm lukewarm. Give me a little bit more warm there.
Well, I mean, so far, so good. I do have some notes that I managed to take down. Some news we could maybe get into if you're up for it. Sure. All right, good. Well, I think I'm just going to go ahead and get some of the news we don't care about out of the way first, because I'm going to have very little to say about it. I guess just to start off, we've got some release dates again for those Avatar sequels we're all waiting for. Just patiently waiting.
Those Avatar movies you will not shut up about, Snoop. You're such a fanboy.
I am. Well, lucky for me that all 4 Avatar sequels are set to come out starting 2020, then 2021, 2024, and then we're going to just round out this great story with 2025. So
Avatar 2 will come out exactly 11 years after the first one.
No, will it?
Yeah.
It's 2009,
the first one came out in 2009, yeah. I
don't know. Well,
and if you do some math there, that's 11 years.
Yeah, I guess so. But based on my timeline, around 2019, James Cameron should be announcing that there's going to be another Avatar sequel, and they're going to get pushed back again. If history has taught us anything. But that's all I wanted to say about it, because...
Well, because last time it was supposed to come out in 2018, and then we just got an announcement saying it's been pushed back, and now it's 2020, so who knows?
Yeah, it was one of those things I know that it kept getting pushed back because he more or less knew, like we all do, that it was going to have to go up against Star Wars, and that just wasn't going to work out. So, and then he decided he wants to film all of them back to back now because he's James Cameron, and only James Cameron can do that.
Well, isn't it still going to go up against some Star Wars movie? Because we're getting one every December till the end of Earth.
Yeah, so I imagine that these are just, it's just been changed, to these year release dates. I imagine that they'll push to kind of put it in an empty spot, because that's what a lot of movies are starting to do since Star Wars did it. We might even just see it pop up into January, because that's January and February are still technically the dumping ground for all your indie films and stuff like that. So I imagine he might just do it then to have as little competition as possible. Because the thing is, if he had just made the second one at least and released it back in 2017 or 2018, what have you, I feel like it would have done fine. It would not have made the amount of money the first one made, but now it's just getting to the point where no one really cared about that movie shortly after it came out. I never cared about it. Yeah, I haven't watched it and I never will. So I think this is just one of those things that studios mainly, I'm sure, just like they don't want to actually, they don't know what it'll do. So yeah, I don't know. I said it's a franchise that I don't care about, so they can keep pushing it back as long as they want.
You're going to have to put your Na'vi cosplay off for another 3 years, Snoop. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I need the extra time to work on it. I can't get that ponytail right, man. It's not long enough. But, yeah. I don't know. Oh, you want to hear some more news that, people actually probably care about this. I don't, but, so it looks like we're getting it. We're getting at least 2 more Fast and the Furious movies. They did say that Fast 10 will be the last one.
So wait, You're telling me that these movies that make billions of dollars are going to get sequels?
I know, shocking. But speaking of billions of dollars, the latest one, Fate of the Furious, the Fate has an 8 in it. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's already crossed 900 million.
Yeah.
It came out last week. That's insane. What? I mean, I get that people like these movies, but why do so many people like these movies? I feel like it's just like I got the last one making as much money as it did because it's, Paul Walker's last big film before he unfortunately passed away. So I get that. But yeah, when I read that this one is making as much money as it is, I honestly, it's puzzling.
Is that the projection for when the weekend is over, that it'll be over 900 million?
It's already, so it made like, I think with the weekend over, it'll put it, it's already made 750 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at is on Box Office Mojo is 772 million.
Yeah, and the projections for this weekend will put out the domestic run to about like between 150 and 160, I believe. And that's just, like I said, that's insane. This movie's been out for a week and it's already going to hit $1 billion pretty much. And I mean, I get like people do have an attachment to these films, but I mean, they're not good, are they?
Couldn't tell you.
I don't know. Maybe it's just something that I'm not seeing. I'm not a car guy, so that already isn't going to appeal to me. And I appreciate, I get that the diversity of the cast is also a big pull for people, which is, that's great that that's there. I at least respect what they've done for that end. But I feel like there's just such better action movies. And this is the 8th one. This franchise is only getting bigger. Usually by now, this things kind of start to peter out. So, yeah. I may not understand it, but I mean, I'm happy for everybody involved. I guess it's a great accomplishment. I don't know.
So we got 3 release dates for 3 X-Men movies here. Hold on to your chair, Snoop. Hold on. Get a good grip.
I mean, I'm sitting in it, so I think I'll be fine.
Okay. New Mutants will come out on April the 13th, 2018.
Oh, it's next year, Sean.
Deadpool 2, June the 1st, 2018. And then on November the 2nd, 2018, Dark Phoenix. So we're getting 3 in 2018.
That's 3 next year, Sean.
Yeah,
that's 3 X-Men films in 1 year. That's a... Oh, so they changed it to so they changed it from Supernova to Dark Phoenix now, or?
I guess
that's what it's officially called now, is Dark Phoenix?
I mean, they might end up changing it, but right now it just says Dark Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we knew that that particular one was going to be about the Phoenix saga again. So, yeah, I like it. I guess I like that better than Supernova. It makes more sense. Although, honestly, out of those 3, that's probably the one I'm least excited for, I think. I mean, I think, I really enjoyed Deadpool, and, Josh Brolin's going to be Cable now, which is great. And they're getting Domino in there. They also confirmed that Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead are coming back. So that'll be fun. And then I don't really know anything about the New Mutants project other than they're doing it. So I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. But I don't know. And we talked about this before. We've only seen this cast in X-Men Apocalypse, and they didn't, for you and me at least, that, we weren't 100% on board with them, but we did like them enough to see them again. But to go into the Dark Phoenix saga in this next movie already, that seems a little rushed to me. Because, that's a big X-Men storyline, especially for the characters of Cyclops and Jean Grey. And we have already seen it once, sort of, and they messed that up. So I don't know how I feel about them rushing into it. I definitely want to, I want to see it and I want it to be good, but I don't know if I feel like I feel like we should maybe build up this new team in another movie or two before we go into something like that. What are your thoughts?
I'm just excited to see an X-Men team movie without Bryan Singer. I want to see what somebody else can do with these characters for a change.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, Bryan Singer, I didn't like his Apocalypse, but I will at least, I give him credit for starting out the franchise as strong as it was. I mean, he did the first two, and I enjoyed Days of Future Past. But I think you're right. I think it is time that we get a fresh take from someone new and see what they can do with these characters.
I think you can, you can do Dark Phoenix. The characters are there and they've been established, so it's not going to be like too much of a jumbled mess like it could be if we didn't know anybody.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. And even though it isn't like new people, like you said, it's the same characters that we have grown up with these last 17 years. So yeah, I mean, it could be. I'm looking forward to it, but I am actually more excited. The one I'm most excited about, just because I don't know anything about it right now, is New Mutants. I think it's something that they can do, and I also I think something they can do that's really fresh. We can get a lot of new characters in there who we've never seen on the big screen, but also I think this is going to be a case of Fox likes to pick and choose which one they mess with the most, and Dark Phoenix is definitely going to be that, it's going to be that big movie, that big X-Men movie that they kind of have their hands in more. I imagine they'll just give New Mutants project to a smaller team and just kind of let them make their own movie. And I like the, Deadpool, they didn't care about. They didn't want anything to do with it, and that ended up being great. I've read that there really wasn't much studio interference with Logan, and that was awesome. So, you can definitely tell, like, the better X-Men movies we've had are the ones that they more or less just kind of stay out of. And then the worst ones we had are like your X-Men Origins, Wolverine, and your Apocalypse. And those are the ones they meddled with the most. So, I don't know. That's an exciting year for X-Men, though. Well, Sean, I think I got some more news for you, if you're willing to hear it.
I guess.
All right. Well, speaking of Marvel characters and movies, looks like the Avengers 3 and 4 are not being filmed simultaneously anymore. They just announced that they are being filmed back to back, but they're going to finish Avengers Infinity War and then do Avengers 4 or go straight into filming it right after, which is still like, that's pretty crazy alone. I think the reason they do stuff like that is because they can bill it as like one mega movie instead of just two separate like tentpole movies. I think as with financing and everything, I think it does make it cheaper, I've read. But do you think that's going to push back the release date of the Avengers 4 since they're not doing it?
No, if they're doing it right after, that still gives them plenty of time. It's what is the release date for 4? Is it 2019?
2019. I don't remember the specific date.
That's plenty of time to, especially if they've got the script and everything up. If they're just going to turn around and shoot the next one, that's plenty of time.
Yeah, I guess I think you're right. If anything, it might be pushed back like later that year in 2019, but I don't see why it wouldn't come out in 2019. Another interesting thing that came out of that news, Kevin Feige also said that the Marvel Universe is going to, he implied that the Marvel Universe is going to drastically change in tone after the Thanos storyline is kind of wrapped up. And that makes me think that maybe he is kind of, because, a lot of the main actors that started out on this, their contracts are ending or already up, and they're just kind of doing it from movie to movie now, or going to. So it makes me think that we might see some core Avengers team members get killed off in the Avengers Infinity War saga. And, that'll be good for the movie, real heartbreaking, Sean, but, what do we do after that? Where do we go? Who do we see?
I don't know. There's going to be no more movies, Snoop. It's going to be the end of cinema.
we stopped. This is what Christopher Nolan was talking about. Why didn't we listen? But no, it would, like I said, to see these characters who we've, watched since 2008, if they were to die, obviously that would, suck, but I think it'd be great for the story. And also that opens up, and they do that in the comics a lot. they have the Winter Soldier in the movies now, and he's famous for kind of taking over the Captain America mantle after Steve Rogers was killed. So I imagine they'll eventually work their way to that. Or they might even go the route of like, you know, getting different characters who we haven't even seen in the films take over those mantles.
Or they might just point a gun at Chris Evans and tell him to never leave the soundstage.
Just keep your wig on. It's a wig he wears. It's pretty good.
So we got the directors for Captain Marvel finally.
Yeah, I thought we already had them. Or one person. I must have.
Well, it's Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck.
Yeah, it's a team. Because they were really trying hard to get a woman, so they're just like, we'll get a woman and a man. It's fine.
They directed one movie that I've never seen, Mississippi Grind.
Yeah, I read that as well. But you know, Marvel's they do that. They get kind of these
lesser known people,
directors who haven't done and I think they do that for they could do that for a couple of reasons. They could do it kind of to have more control over the because Marvel does have this overarching, continuity and story they want to stick to. So they may, get these lesser known directors and that aren't necessarily in a position to kind of fight them back on as much, like of their story decisions and everything. But also just to get, fresh take. Cause I think the Russo brothers were mainly known for TV. They did Arrested Development.
Did Community.
Yeah, and Community as well. But yeah, in the airport scene in Captain America Civil War, you could see the blue van or car or whatever, and that's pretty good.
Well, so far in each movie that they've directed, they've had a cast member of Community make a guest appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had Danny Putty in Winter Soldier, and you had Jim Rash in Civil War.
Yeah, he's the guy that like. After Iron Man gives that speech in the beginning, he like walks backstage, right?
Yeah, he's the dean from Community.
Yeah, he's the dean of Community and he did that in Civil War. Yeah, so I think, I don't know, I like it. Because the guy who's directing Homecoming, it's like John Watts, I think. He's only done like one movie, really, that I've heard of, and I haven't even seen it. It's a Cop Car with Kevin Bacon. And I've heard it so. But yeah, I'm fine with these guys. I want to see what they can do. I'm just excited to see the character of Captain Marvel show up, which we're going to get her before that movie anyway, which I think they also announced it's set to start filming in February of 2018, I believe.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Snoop.
What? Oh, sorry.
Did you see that Cloak and Dagger? Did you see that Cloak and Dagger trailer?
I did actually.
There's a lot of teenage drama going on in that.
A lot of teen angst in there, isn't there, Sean? Which, to be fair, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily know that until I watched that trailer, because I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, what is this teen drama crap? But that is like their original story. The most experience I've had with them really has been they were in the Ultimate Spider-Man run. And in that they were, I think they were dating, and then they were on the way to the prom, and then got in a car wreck and got experimented on. But there's similar tones to this. It's the same. They use that. They're using that one evil company when they can't use Oscorp or another one. They just throw in that company. It's like Roxxon, I think. Yeah. But yeah, it's It's just about like they're from two different sides of the world, Sean.
Well, it's just life is so complicated, Snoop. You're a teenager, you're trying to be popular, but everything you do just blows up in your face. You can't sit at the cool kids' lunch table. Your parents don't pay attention to your wants and needs. It's so difficult, Snoop.
They name you Tandy. That's enough reason for me to want to run away from my parents.
I'm just glad that there's a network that finally has the guts, the courage to tackle such issues as teen dramas. We don't see that enough.
Yeah, it's which I mean, I guess for the network it makes sense. It's on Freeform, which is ABC and everything. But basically it's the story of is it Tandy Bowen and what's his name? Tyrone?
Tyrone, yeah.
Yeah, Tyrone. I don't remember his last name, but they basically both ran away for different reasons and ended up kind of meeting up and were eventually kidnapped by this organization that experiments on runaway children, and they're given powers. But they're linked. Their powers are linked. Like basically, she has the power of her light. She can create like daggers of light and heal people and what have you. And then he is enveloped by this dark force and can open a portal to this realm. It's really like their powers are very interesting.
Can't he like teleport through shadows or something like that?
Yeah. So basically he has access to this other dimension almost. At least that's how I've read it. And he can summon it through his body. And it's like it more or less envelops his body, and it gives him some kind of weird hunger. So basically when he could take other people into this dimension and in a way that's like eating them almost. But the reason why he sticks around her is because with her powers, it more or less just kind of, mellows out that hunger that he experiences. But no, they have an interesting, anything I've read about them or read with them, they have an interesting like dynamic, because basically they are, she was the rich kid and he grew up in a poor family, and it's just about them kind of being forced into this underground world and having to work together, and they're really like, they just depend on each other. It's a very interesting, like I said, this show isn't necessarily for people like us. It is more geared towards teens, because that's what it is about.
Well, I was gonna ask, do you actually plan on watching this?
I think because again, this is what that story is it is very accurate to the comics, their specific origins, first origin stories. So I think I'll give it at least an episode or two and see kind of, how it is. It doesn't have to be great. I think if the characters are interesting enough and, have that chemistry that they do in the comics, it'll be compelling enough for me to kind of stick with it for a little bit. The effects actually looked pretty good though.
Yeah. I was going to say I'll definitely give it a chance, but if it's just a full on teenage drama nonsense, it might be the first part of the MCU I avoid.
Yeah. And again, like that's to say there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just, it isn't geared towards you, like, older people like us. We just don't get the kids these days. It is about just, it's about, runaway teens, and also, kind of just the war on drugs as well. That's a big reason after they I know that after, the Roxxon stuff, they more or less just become vigilantes and take down, drug lords who are overdosing kids and kidnapping them or human trafficking and stuff like that. So I think it does have enough elements in it to kind of draw me in. I just don't, like you said, I don't know if I'll be able to kind of relate to these characters as much as a younger audience. But yeah, watch the trailer and see if it's for you guys. What's the other Marvel show that's going to be on Freeform with them?
The New Warriors.
Yeah, that's the one with Squirrel Girl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I feel like this show would have done better with, because I imagine they'll want to cross them over at some point. That would be pretty good with the Runaway show they're doing on Hulu. And I think they actually team up, the Runaways and Cloak and Dagger also team up in the comics. So we might even see that later down the road, depending on, how this show is received and how the Runaways does. But I don't know. It's a lot of uncertainty, Sean. We don't know everything, do we?
Well, you definitely don't.
I certainly don't, but I'll at least admit to it, which is more than I can say for you.
Ask me anything, Snoop. I know everything.
Did you know that Spider-Man is confirmed for Avengers 4?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, you know now, Sean. Yeah, he's which I imagine most people, unless they get horribly beaten by Thanos or just straight up killed in Avengers 3, they'll go over into Avengers 4 for like that final fight. But it has been, there's been stuff going around that this, Avengers Infinity War, which is what they're doing right now, and the Untitled Avengers 4 project might not be as connected as we originally thought. Because it was supposed to be a 2-part movie, and then they dropped, they just called Avengers 3 Infinity War and left the 4th one untitled. So who knows where that's going to go. I imagine as big of a movie as the Infinity War story is going to be, they'll carry it over, but who knows?
Yeah.
I am excited to see kind of where the Avengers stuff, just the Marvel Cinematic Universe will go after the Thanos stuff wraps up. But you got any more newsy news for me, Sean, since you know so much?
Well, I'm looking in the news hole, and it's looking pretty empty down in there. I'm not seeing much.
Are you sure you got your news hole?
Oh, that's my neighbors. Let me.
You lose that thing all the time, Sean.
Let me look at my news hole. Yeah, there's nothing in there.
Okay, I got one more bit of news. It's also Marvel related. There's a lot of Marvel stuff coming out this week. I guess with Guardians of the Galaxy gearing up, which has gotten some really good reviews, by the way. I haven't read anything with too many juicy spoilers, but overall the reactions have been quite well, which, only got people more excited, I'm sure, when James Gunn decided he's going to just do the third one now.
You know what I love, Snoop?
What you love, Sean?
Oh, the fact that I don't know anything about Guardians 2.
I watched the first 2 trailers, I believe. I've stayed in the dark for pretty much everything else. I don't deal with any of those TV spots, Sean. I don't see the point. By the time the movie comes out now, there's like 30 or 40 TV spots that you can just edit together to make
the whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, if you've already, like, the people who are going to go see it, at least on, day one or, the first weekend, you've already gotten them with that first or second trailer. Stop showing everybody stuff. But anyway, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I can't tell you one thing that got cut from it, and that's Nathan Fillion's cameo.
Yeah.
James Gunn came out and said, because I think a while back Nathan Fillion posted on Twitter a picture of him on the set of Guardians 2 wearing a really just disgusting wig. And everyone's like, what's he doing? Well, apparently he was going to be the character Wonder Man in a cameo, but they had to cut it, which James Gunn actually came out and said that it really wasn't a huge thing because basically the scene that he got cut from, it was just him as Wonder Man, but on a poster in the background. Yeah. So he actually wasn't in a scene.
Yeah, there's like set photos of like that poster a few months back. Wonder Man's he's probably not well known by a lot of people, but he's kind of a big character in some of the, especially back in the day, of some Marvel mythos. So
just like Nathan Fillion.
Yeah. Well, I could see why maybe they cut the cameo.
Yeah. I mean, if he's not even in, if he was just on a poster, then it's not like that was just going to be a little Easter egg. So, which, would have been cool, but now we know it anyway. So that would have been the only point of it, is just to see it. So, it's fine. I'd like to, that would have been his second cameo in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, because he also did a voice of one of the, he did the voice of that prison inmate that Groot takes down when they first get there. Yeah. And so apparently him and James Gunn are best buds. So I'm sure he'll be back in some way. Well,
he was in, James Gunn tends to cast the same people in a lot of his stuff. Nathan Fillion was in Slither. He played the sheriff in that movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like Nathan Fillion. Maybe he'll start doing stuff I care about now that Castle's finally gone.
Look, Snoop, Firefly is definitely coming back, okay?
No one needs it.
It's definitely coming back.
No one needs it. I mean, people want it, obviously, but no one needs it. And I don't think anyone involved with it really wants to pick it up again. Nah. Joss Whedon's doing Batgirl. It's one of those things. It's like, yeah, it sucks, but we got to move on. You got the movie that ends the show.
Serenity. It's amazing.
But I don't know. Nathan Fillion will be fine. I'm not worried about him.
I am. I stay up late at night worrying about Nathan Fillion.
Why isn't he Green Lantern yet? Because he's too old.
He's too old and too fat.
He could be a part of the Green Lantern Corps. Like maybe just throw him in there.
Let him be the Skrull, chipping.
Or save him for the Red Lanterns when they eventually introduce them, and make him Dexter the cat. Be great. All right. Well, Sean, I think that's all I've got in my newsy news hole. We should probably come up with a better name. We should probably come up with a better name for that.
Stretch that news hole a little bit longer. Let's see if there's anything else in there.
Sean, stop it. If you keep this up, I'm going to have to change it, our content to explicit.
I might need to use both my hands. I might need to use both my hands to get inside of your news hole.
This is why we do this over Skype. Well, Sean, now that we're out of all that fresh newsy news, why don't we just get into that main topic for the day, which is again, I had you introduce the show just to kind of set the tone. I'm not going to know a lot about this topic, so this episode's going to consist a lot of me just nodding my head and maybe asking you a bunch of questions that you may or may not have to answer.
Okay. So yeah, we're doing live action DC shows today. And you say you don't know a lot. I mean, I haven't seen everything. I haven't seen a single episode of Birds of Prey, Snoop. So how are we going to talk about it? I don't know. But yeah, I figured
we're certainly not going to look stuff up on the internet.
Well, there's been quite a few DC shows over the years. Recently the CW stuff has been quite popular. So yeah. I figured what we would do is just kind of jump around from various shows and save the CW, the Arrowverse, if you will, until the last. And then we'll talk about that as a whole.
Yeah, I could talk about that one at least. But until then, let's cover some stuff you vaguely know about and I know nothing about. What would you like to start us off with, Sean?
You know what? Let's start off with The Flash from 1990. This wasn't a good show. That being said, I've seen every episode of it.
Well, there's only like one season, so that's not... I mean, don't sound too impressed with yourself, Sean. But yeah, it's got... I guess we can go ahead and mention this, because it is like one of the coolest facts about the CW Flash is... what's the actor's name? John Wesley Shipp?
John Wesley Shipp, yeah.
He played the Flash in this series that you're talking about, and then he eventually moved over to the CW, and he plays Barry Allen's dad in the current Flash series. And I've seen like clips of this show. Like you said, it's not good.
Well, you know what? I'd be curious to see what happened if this show got a second season, because it did improve towards the end. Part of the problem with the show was it was a reaction to the 89 Batman movie. So they tried to like make it like all serious and dark and, full of 90s nonsense. And that's not what the Flash is.
Yeah, he's one of the most, to me anyway, he's one of the most lighthearted superheroes of the Justice League.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where like, he'll be walking down the street at night all the time and he just have like steam coming up off of the streets. And you know how every 90s set looked back in the day.
Yeah, they just have this one set and then just like switch different angles and add more steam or less steam. It's all about smoke and mirrors.
Towards the end, they started to use actual like villains from his rogue galleries. Like, you had Captain Cold and Mirror Master. I think you had Mirror Master. And famously, you had, Mark Hamill as the Trickster. He appeared in 2 episodes. And I would actually recommend watch the 2 Trickster episodes. They're actually kind of good.
I've seen clips of him. It's where he has him tied to the chair at one point.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of neat because, this was before Batman, the animated series. So you can kind of hear hints of his Joker voice when he's playing the Trickster.
Yeah, he more or less is kind of developing it.
Yeah, so you kind of get to see like elements of that character being evolved here, which is interesting.
Yeah, and even when watching the clips of those particular episodes with the Trickster, you can kind of see like he more or less is like a live action kind of goofy Joker.
Yeah.
Even just his mannerisms and the stuff he's doing to the Flash. So yeah, that was definitely it's great to see those hints kind of show up in that show, because I think that's partly why they asked him to do the voice of the Joker on the Batman animated series, is because they saw him in that episode of the Flash and they're like, yeah, this guy could do that. And I think that's kind of what got Mark Hamill into voice acting as much as he is that that initial role, which is great. I mean, he's a fantastic voice actor. But talking about going back to the Flash, I've seen some of it, and even then, John Wesley Shipp is pretty good in that role. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a lot of this show is just the stuff that is good kind of gets bogged down by the ridiculous and crap that is in it. First of all, that suit is just it does not hold up.
It's like fake rubber muscles.
Yeah, they were into that. They couldn't just, because that was back when it's like, oh, he's a superhero, so he has to be insanely ripped. But we'll just give him a muscle suit.
Also, part of the reason this show failed was the huge budget. It had each episode cost an average of $1 million, which back in 1990 was an insane amount of money to spend on a television show.
Yeah, that's insane. How many episodes of that were there?
22.
Around 20?
22, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got some... I think the show would, like you said, would have been better if they just more or less went with his initial rogues gallery, because there was a lot of characters they just kind of made up. I remember one episode I've seen is where he fights that version of himself. Is like Pollock or something? It's like
there's a blue Flash.
Costume Flash. Yeah. And that episode's not necessarily bad. Like the way it ends isn't necessarily bad, but that isn't that, that's not what we kind of wanted to see in that initial run. We wanted to see the comics come to life and, have these characters on screen. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it was I commend it for what it tried to do with the genre, but it just wasn't ready. The 90s wasn't a good time for superhero properties anyway.
It's like the very first episode, which was like a 2-hour television movie, basically. Like he goes up against like these biker thugs that have like an underground, kind of like meeting, and it's very 90s. It's like almost like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where you had like the Foot Clan being teenage soldiers and all that stuff. Also, the actress Amanda Pays, she plays Tina McGee on the show. She would go on to, reprise her role in the new Flash.
Yeah. They interact. I think in one scene.
Yeah, she was kind of a love interest for Barry Allen.
Yeah. It's interesting that they didn't just do Iris West.
She appeared in the first episode, and then she got on a bus and drove away, and we never heard from her again.
Oh, it's kind of funny. That made a lot of people mad.
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoy moments like that, though. Like, I wouldn't have enjoyed it at the time as a fan, but it didn't happen to me, so I find it quite funny.
It's funny if you ever look stuff up about this show, it'll usually say like also starring whatever the actress's name was as Tina or as Iris West, and like even the DVD, like if you fold it out, there's a big picture of Iris West on it, even though she's in just one episode.
Yeah, just the one scene.
Yeah, so she's kind of promoted as being a big character on the show for some reason.
Yeah, that's what people wanted to see, and in a way they got it, so. Yeah, it's one of those things that I kind of, part of me wants to check out.
It's kind of interesting.
I think it more so just to see how the show was made and how, the effects and everything. But again, this might be a show that's just, it's past my time to even kind of, really enjoy. It might just feel like work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of those things I'm definitely not opposed to maybe giving a episode or two. Oh, maybe is there a green Flash?
I don't think there's a green Flash.
That blue Flash was just odd. Because I didn't know anything about it going in. I'm just like, who's Pollock? And then I saw him, I was like, what is this? And it was just John Wesley Shipp, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just in a blue costume. Good, good try, guys. But what other DC shows were in the 90s, Sean?
In the 90s?
Inform me. Or late 90s, early 2000s?
We had...
some other date?
Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. There's that, which I can't talk a whole lot about. I've seen exactly one episode of.
Wow, so. Sean. I went ahead and called myself out as being ill-prepared for this podcast.
Well, I said at the beginning, I don't know everything about all of this. Even though if you go back about 30 minutes, I literally said, I know everything. But if you pay attention, sometimes I lie.
I don't know. I don't know anything, Sean. Maybe you know. Maybe the listeners know. But we could talk about that in another episode. Let's get back to the DC stuff.
It's where Terry Hatcher got a career started. Plus, you had old Dean Cain.
Which killed his career.
Yep. Well, speaking of Superman, let's go way back to the 50s and talk about the Adventures of Superman with George Reeves.
Oh, yeah. That's is that the first live action?
Yeah. Have you seen any of this show?
No. I've always found it interesting, though, that both he and Christopher Reeve have similar names, last names, and they were both Superman.
Yeah. You know what? I like this show.
Yeah.
It's of its time. It's a bit campy. But if you're like a fan, kind of like the Golden Age Boy Scout version of Superman, it's good stuff.
Yeah, well, I imagine, we see it as campy, but back then that would have been an accurate portrayal of that character, because that is kind of what superheroes were for a long time. It's just, goofy men in tights. And in a way, they still are. But, yeah, and I think one thing that does kind of work well for Superman is, he obviously has all these crazy powers, but it's more about what works, I think, for Superman for a lot of people is more of his character. Because his powers are just, I have flight, I have, super speed, I'm invulnerable. His powers are more or less, someone has some version of it, in, somewhere or another in comics, but it's what he stands for that really just makes Superman people's favorite hero. And I think that's something you can, nail with writing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say there's 6 seasons of the show, and the first 2 are in black and white and are noticeably a lot more serious than the final 4 seasons.
Well, it's black and white. Everything's a little darker in black and white.
Yeah, but it was kind of like occasionally it would be like a film noir, there's a lot of Superman, going on like a detective case to figure out a crime or whatever. And then at the last minute, he would become Superman, and they would shoot bullets at him, and you could tell it was just, where they took like the what do you call it? The film print and just drew lines on it to make it look like bullets bouncing off of his chest.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you're into that kind of stuff, it's fun to watch, actually.
Okay, yeah, and is he a good Superman?
Yeah.
Is he?
George Reeves, who was also very famous for when he took on the role, he wanted to be like a good role model for the kids. Like if he was out in public, he refused to smoke. If he was, if a kid ever recognized him, he would take time out of his day to talk about, what it means to be a good person and all this and that. So he took the role very seriously.
He always had a Superman outfit under his shirt.
Yeah. Well, when the show was in black and white, that shirt was actually brown, the Superman shirt. Apparently it showed up better as opposed to wearing a blue one.
Yeah, they would do that up with a lot of other shows and movies, whatever, because you just wanted to show up in that instance. So anything you might see, just make it show up, which I guess that's, I would imagine then they didn't, restore that to color if that's the case. No. It's just those first 2 seasons are always in black and white.
There's a famous story where George Reeves was doing a special guest appearance as Superman, in front of a bunch of kids. And one of the kids brought his father's gun from home, and he pointed it at him because he wanted to see the bullets bounce off his chest.
Oh.
Yeah, and all the parents and everybody started freaking out, and George Reeves just very calmly walked up to him, and he said, "Now, the bullets would bounce off of me, but they might hit somebody else in the crowd, and you wouldn't want that, would you? So the kid put the gun away. And
they didn't take the gun from that kid.
Well,
he just put it. He's like, oh, okay, I'll just put it back in my pocket.
It's gone back and forth on whether that story is true or not, but yeah, it's interesting.
Ooh. Yeah, people would not necessarily handle that as well today. That kid would not be walking home. I'd like to think that's true. I don't know. He's the one who I think he just mysteriously was murdered in his, like during a party or something.
There's a movie called Hollywoodland that tells the story. Ben Affleck plays George Reeves. I think in real life it was ruled a suicide, but it's kind of, there's evidence that he was murdered by like his ex-wife or something like that.
Yeah, that's the story. Hollywood was a lot of mystery back in those days. Yeah. A lot of stories like that. But, you know, that's the Superman curse, man. Your career either dies or you get killed.
Yeah.
It sucks. Who knows what's going to happen to Henry Cavill?
Well, he's in these DC movies, so he's already been cursed.
And he's in Mission Impossible 6 now.
Yeah.
He's going to take down Tom Cruise. Or at least get him off of that plane that he shouldn't be on at his age.
You got another one you want to throw out there, Snoop?
Well, really the only one I'm going to kind of know about is the CW stuff. That's the ones I stay up most up to date with. I guess I kind of want to talk about the Birds of Prey because I do have, maybe some questions you can answer.
Okay, like I said, I've seen none of it, and I know very little about it, but maybe I'll know. Let's find out.
Well, that's the attitude I want from you, Sean. Is that so? The Birds of Prey is, is that the actual team of the Huntress, Batgirl, and Black Canary, or is it a different Birds of Prey? Is it just about birds?
It's a documentary about birds. Yes, I think it's Oracle, Black Canary, and Huntress.
Oh, they did Oracle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
And like, it only lasted 13 episodes, and like, all the characters had like vague telepathic powers and stuff like that.
As they've always had.
I've had no interest in watching it. Everything I've heard about it sounds terrible. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I know it was like kind of early 2000s, but even back then, I had never heard of that show. It probably until like the last few years when people bring up how awful it really is. And, it sucks we haven't really seen them try to do something like that again with like an all female, superhero team.
Well,
I feel like
I know the show is somewhat faint or infamous for the fact that they kept hinting that Batman was going to show up at some point, and he never does. Like every episode would apparently end with like, Batman's going to show up next episode, so keep tuning in, and he just never shows up.
And then it got canceled, and they're like, well, guys, we were going to let Batman show up next season.
If we had gotten a 14th episode, he definitely would have been there.
Oh, it only made it to 13?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, do you think that's something that could work now, though?
Yeah,
like, would you like to see a Birds of Prey show?
I wouldn't be against it, but you got to make it good. That's a secret.
Yeah.
That's a secret to Hollywood, Snoop. Stuff has to be good.
That's the secret to get you to watch, Sean. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Just have it be good this whole time.
What we need to talk about?
Dean Cain.
Let's spend 45 minutes on Dean Cain.
Yes.
Cain? You believe it. No, we need to talk about the Adam West Batman from 1966.
Oh, yeah, of course. Why didn't we mention that to start out with? God, we've lost so many listeners already just by not mentioning that until now. Yeah, that is a show. That show's a gift.
I kind of love it. It's ridiculous, but I kind of love it.
Oh, that is the very definition of camp, and I'm completely okay with it. I mean, it goes against everything that Batman is now. But I think that's what makes it more enjoyable today is to see this ridiculous side of Batman. I'm glad they covered it as much as they did in the Lego Batman movie. But yeah, I think Adam West really, he really sells that role for me, though. That show is just, I don't think it would be the same if Adam West hadn't been cast as Batman. And I love, like, this is back kind of when, you know, this stretch of TV where they would just recycle shots.
Yeah.
And you'd always have that one set where they're climbing up a building and then someone just pops through a window and to see, like, hey, what's going on? It's like, oh, don't worry, citizen. It's fine. Go back in your home. Like, they did that so many times.
I highly suggest people check out the movie that they made out of this, the 66 movie. It just has some of the most ridiculous jokes, like how they come to conclusions about stuff. Like, basically all of Batman's villains gathered together to, like, try and take him down and rule the world. And how they figure out who the villains are is there's a boat on the sea, and Robin's like, the boat's on the sea. C for Catwoman. It's like, how did you come to that conclusion?
But it makes so much sense. Oh, that show's great. Everything about that, like, just the show itself, and then, like, the writing and everything behind it. They cast Catwoman, like, 3 times, I think.
3 different Catwoman.
That look nothing alike. I think Eartha Kitt was the last one, wasn't she?
Yeah, there was, trying to remember. Lee Merriweather played the one in the movie. Eartha Kitt was the 3rd one, and the first one, let me look it up. Looking stuff up on the podcast. Julie Newmar.
Yeah. Which, she was the one who came back for the animated film, right? Yeah. And there's a great, like, that's a great film, especially if you enjoy the 66 series or just if you want a good jumping on point to see just kind of what show it was. It captures that energy again, I think. A lot of the original cast came back if they weren't, you know, fed up with Batman or dead. But just, I think it works even better because it is a cartoon, because a lot of the writing and the jokes are very cartoonish. But it is just, it's fun to see. It's great to know that show is live action and just has Adam West in that costume, which is it's actually a really great Batman costume. A lot of the costumes in that show work really well. I enjoy that's probably my favorite Batgirl costume from the 66 series. But yeah, I really want that. I want to start watching that show again. I think you got me in the mood to watch some Batman 66, Sean. They're doing a comic right now as well. They just met the 70s Wonder Woman, which, Sean, we could talk about that.
Great segue, Snoop.
Thanks, buddy. But yeah, help me out, Sean.
I've seen a little bit of it.
No. God, what's that woman's name? She's Wonder Woman.
Linda Carter.
Linda Carter. Thank you. God, Lee. So many people are going to be yelling at me in this episode. I mean, I haven't seen as much of it as I have the 66 stuff, but it's the same kind of just campy, ridiculous.
Well,
nature.
I think the first, because there was 3 seasons of it. I think the first season took place in World War II, and then they jumped to, like, present day, starting with season 2.
Is that when she started spinning around?
Yeah, well, she always spun around, Snoop. And hey,
how else is she going to get into costume?
Seeing Linda Carter spin around isn't a bad thing. That was a good-looking woman, is the point that I was trying to make, Snoop, in case you didn't catch on.
Are you glad that we didn't ever get the reboot of that series that they tried doing?
Speaking of which, they tried rebooting it. Or I want to call it a reboot. It was just like a new Wonder Woman show. I saw the pilot episode of it. It was terrible.
Yeah, I heard there's a lot going on. Yeah, so that show is let's see.
It's the actress who played Wonder Woman was Adrienne Palicki, who plays Mockingbird on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. And they tried in 2011 to get this show off the air. I think to NBC. But yeah, there's just a whole lot of there's a whole lot of nonsense going on. At one point, like she was Wonder Woman, and then she was Diana Prince, and then she was also someone else. She had a different identity where she was a CEO of this company, but she wasn't like the Diana Prince persona wasn't the CEO. She had to adopt a different persona to be a CEO of a company. I guess, I don't know. And then she had I think they tried throwing in a goofy friend in there at one point. There's so much on it going on.
You also had like the villain. It's been so long since I've seen this, but she was like
Veronica Cale.
Yeah, she was like some beauty, like she was the head of some beauty company that was like selling some kind of cream that did something to women, like it attacked them or something like that, which is taken straight out of the Catwoman movie, but I don't know.
Yeah, and then Steve Trevor was in it, and she broke up with Steve Trevor, and then she wanted to get back with Steve Trevor, but then the twist came. It's like Steve Trevor, he's married to another woman that isn't one of Wonder Woman's many personas, or maybe it is. She wouldn't know. There's too many to keep up with. Point is, it's not good. So I'm glad. The costume was on point, though. Yeah. I like that costume. But the Linda Carter series is way better. I think, like, kind of going back to the, talking about The Flash, how it's one of those shows that I can't really get into because it's just passed by time. I think the Batman 66 and even this show, as ridiculous as they are, I think they're a different kind of, I think the fact that they're a different, almost like a different genre in and of itself, and the different tones works for it.
Well,
because it is.
I would say that they embrace what they are. Like, Batman, as campy and ridiculous as it is, that's what Batman was in the 60s. Like, the Silver Age of Batman that's what it was.
He had all kinds of shark repellent on him.
He had Rainbow Batman running about, always having to change outfits. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you're right. The Flash has never been like this brooding, dark character like they tried to make him out to be.
Yeah, and obviously you couldn't do this kind of this Batman or Wonder Woman show now. It would never work. But I like that we do have these shows already established, and we can go back to them, and they're more enjoyable. The fact that they are as ridiculous as they are, like, it's just to step back into that time and see it. I mean, if this was the only thing I had to watch of these characters, then I probably wouldn't feel as as grateful for them as I do. But luckily, that's not the case. Plus, I like those costumes, man. I like watching people spin around to get in their costumes. Just makes so much sense.
Sometimes you go out into public, you point guns at people, and you make them spin around for hours on end. You're a sick man, Snoop, a sick man.
And then I just put my gun back in my pocket and walk home. Sean, I'd like to ask you, here's a show I know you can answer some questions about, because you watched all of it, you own it. Let's talk about Smallville.
Let's talk about Smallville.
Where's Tom Welling? First question. Is he okay?
He's a secretive guy, that Tom Welling. I've tried tracking him down. He always eludes me.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good in the role, though, right?
Yeah, he's good for what it is. Smallville, I struggled to call it good, but it's kind of the best thing we could have gotten at the time. It was a show that went on way too long. It should have ended after like season 4 or 5 instead of lasting 10 seasons like it did. Because you had a lot of ridiculous stuff. Like, at the beginning, the rule was no flights, no tights. We're not going to see, Superman fly. We're not going to see him put on the Superman outfit. But
he's not Superman.
But by the time
he's going to be Smallville.
Yeah, but by the time you get to like the end of the show, he's like in his mid-20s. He's working at the Daily Planet. He knows all these other superheroes who are dressed up and, running around fighting crime. He has all of his powers. He's fought most of his villains, but he's not Superman.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's...
It just kind of got it just got to the point where it's like, it's frustrating just because he's not Superman.
Yeah.
I see what you, they just wanted to keep the show going, I guess.
Yeah, because the show, it gets made fun of a lot now. It's important to remember when Smallville first came on, it was a very popular show. Like, everybody watched it.
Yeah. I don't think, we have all the CW stuff now, and a lot of credit for that goes to Arrow kind of starting it out. But I don't even think, Arrow wouldn't have been a possibility if Smallville hadn't,
definitely,
done as well as it had. I think, didn't originally when they tried the Arrow spinoff show, they were going to use that same guy who played him in Smallville?
Yeah, there was talk about it back in the day. I think his name was Justin Hotley or something like that, about giving him a spinoff. And I think he actually turned it down because he didn't want to overshadow Smallville or whatever. But
what a nice guy.
But yeah, it was on the WB, so it had a lot of teen drama in it, of course. A lot of the cast was really good. You had Jonathan Schneider as his father. You had Annette O'Toole as his mother, Martha, who famously was also...
Martha!
Yeah, Martha! Who famously was also... what's her face?
Does she have a face?
You're going to edit all this out, I'm sure.
Naturally, I would never keep you struggling in the podcast.
Do
you need to look it up on the podcast, Sean? Something you've never done before?
Edit all this out.
All right.
Lana Lang. I don't know why I forgot that. Yeah, Annette O'Toole was famously Lana Lang in Superman 3. And Kristen Couric plays Lana Lang in this show. And her story arc goes on and on and on and on and on to eventually you hate the character, and then the story keeps going on and on and on, and then she goes away.
Until eventually you hate yourself for having watched the character.
And then she goes away and you're happy, and then she comes back after half a season and her story goes on and on and on, and you just don't care.
Well, what was your reaction when she came back that first time you saw it?
I wasn't happy because the show actually improved without her. And yeah, Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor is great. Oddly enough, this is the best live action Lex Luthor that's ever been on screen.
And maybe the best we'll ever get.
Probably.
Who's to say? I mean, it's a pretty safe bet at this point, but one of these days we'll knock it out of the park, I guess. Maybe we'll get Michael Rosenbaum to do it again. Even though it more or less, this show ended a lot of careers for people.
Yeah. Also, after the 7th season, the WB stopped existing. He had the CW come about. So the last 3 seasons were on the CW, and the budget very noticeably got slashed because it actually had pretty good special effects, especially for the time, when the show first came on.
Yeah. I imagine the amount of teen angst also went up in those last 3 seasons.
Actually,
the CW.
By that point, he's working at the Daily Planet, so it wasn't so bad.
Oh, okay. He aged out of all that. That's good. Yeah, I think what I like most about this show, at least today, is the amount of heroes and characters we kind of get to see. Some of them are pretty brief, and a lot of them do look ridiculous in the outfits they gave them. But it was nice to see them.
Yeah,
you get your Aquaman in there, right?
Yeah, you get, I was going to say, you have a Justice League that's formed in the show. It's him, Aquaman, Green Arrow, Cyborg, a version of the Flash. They kept giving him different names. Yeah, I think
they did. It's implied that they did Bart Allen, usually, who's his future, great-great-great-grandson or whatever.
Well, the first episode that character shows up, he has a bunch of different fake IDs with Wally West and Bart Allen and stuff written on them.
They didn't know which one they wanted to make him at the time. They're like, let's see who the people want the most, and we'll just give them that ID.
But you also had especially as the show went on, you had a bunch of heroes show up for just an episode. You had the Blue Beetle. Who else did they have?
They had Zatanna.
Zatanna showed up in a few episodes. He had, what's the name of that doctor, the magic guy? Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate showed up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had a bunch of characters like that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of characters that, who we'll see where the DC live action stuff goes in the next few years, but I don't, that might be an instance of this is the only time we'll get to see a live action version of some of these characters. And, it's better to have it than not sometimes, especially if it's only a one-off episode. It's fun to see them. if you know who these characters are, or if you just want a good introduction to these characters, to go off from, maybe go and get some of their comics or see other media with them, or, what have you. So like I said, this show, I think for me is I think what makes it as good as it is it is what kind of kickstarted a lot of these live action DC properties and got people interested in them again. Yeah. In TV especially. So
yeah, if anything, it showed that you could do this kind of stuff on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not going to look as great as a film, obviously, and it's going to stand out at times, especially with the effects. That's always, I think, the hardest balancing act for these shows these superhero properties, when you do TV, is you want to see their powers, obviously, but you have to, as a creator, and you have to do it in a way where it's like, okay, is this just going to look so ridiculous? Like, people are going to hate it, and I can see, I think, like you said, with him not having all his powers in the beginning, I think they did kind of push the story in that way because they didn't want to put all the budget into that because they didn't know how it was going to turn out. And then they more or less kind of worked their way into it.
Well, so when he first shows up, he's super strong and he has his super speed. And like the idea was that like each season they would introduce a new power. So like, second season, he got his heat vision. It was around like season 5 or so, he got like his super breath and this and that, which I thought was a neat idea to like ease people into it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a show I feel like you can go back and watch, especially if you love the character of Superman. Not if you want to see him in the Superman suit. I think, don't they give you that in the last shot of the show?
You see him from a distance, like in the finale. The finale is complete garbage, by the way. But yeah, you see a CGI version of him with the suit on from like a distance. And then like the final shot of the show is him running across a rooftop and like ripping open his shirt and seeing the Superman logo. Actually, that suit that you see, because you see it before he wears it, that's the same suit that they had in the movie Superman Returns.
Oh, the one that Brandon Routh wore. I'm sure he wasn't too attached to that suit when he saw it. It's one of those things. It's definitely it's another show that's like all these other ones. It's of its time, but it's one of the better ones that we've had. Certainly no Birds of Prey. It's not a single bird in that show that I saw.
Look, I counted all the birds through the 10 seasons, and it was not nearly enough.
0 stars.
Somebody save me. Let's move on.
That was unpleasant. Let's move on after that. Well, Sean, do we have any more of the older kind of DC stuff that we need to vaguely cover and prove that we know little to nothing about?
Well, here's a show I know little to nothing about. I saw the first episode of Constantine when it came on.
Oh, yeah?
It was very average. Right. Moving on.
Yeah. The guy's good in it.
Yeah, that guy, he shows up in Arrow eventually. He pretty much nails the role. Just too bad it wasn't a better show.
Yeah, I think that one wasn't on CW either.
That was on NBC.
Yeah. Like I said, I think he's the best part of that. So to get him, I hope, like you said, he crosses over in Arrow, and that episode's one of the better episodes of season 4 of Arrow, which is complete garbage. So yeah, I'd like to see him. I don't know if I want to see them try to revive the show, because I don't think they'll get it right. I'd like to see him like kind of team up with other characters here and there, though. Kind of be a recurring character like he was on that episode.
Well, one mistake they made with the show is Constantine. He's like looking for people to fight, like demons and stuff, and that's not what Constantine really is. He's kind of this guy who just wants to be left alone and like just kind of drank his sorrows away and whatever, and like demons keep coming after him, and he's forced to fight them and stuff.
Yeah, he's a drunk asshole who everything that happens to him is more or less his fault. Like, he screws a lot of people over and it catches up with him. And then he has to think his way out of it until, another person or demon or whatever comes and tries to kill him again. And I guess they were like, that's not something we can relate to. So we need to have him, we need to have him want to fight demons. But I don't need that, Sean. I can't relate to that either. I don't want to fight any demons as far as I'm concerned. But I would like to wear that sweet trench coat he has, though. Matt Ryan is his name, the actor who plays him. He's really good. He also did the voice of Constantine in that Justice League Dark movie as well. He came back and did the voice for it. So, yeah, I'd like to have him back in some way or another. Have you watched any of, I said I was going to do it, but I just couldn't bring myself to it. Have you watched anything of Powerless? A new DC show?
I have not.
The insurance company?
It didn't look good, like even a little bit.
The thing is about the show, I saw a couple clips, before we started, because I didn't want to completely bash it without having watched anything. And I'm not going to, say it's shit or whatever, because I haven't seen it. So I don't have that right. But I watched a clip and basically it seems like a typical sitcom, but I don't even really get the connections. Like it seems they have very loose connections to the DC universe. Like I think one of the characters, the main character, Vanessa Hudgens, is Bruce Wayne's cousin or something. Okay. And she more or less just kind of, comes back or it may not even be I think it's Gotham. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough about it, but she more or less just comes into the city and joins this company that handles insurance claims, for property damage due to the Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. So I don't know. I also think it's odd to go ahead and start a show like this when we really just kicked off the DC cinematic universe. Like there's not enough heroes to be messing stuff up, and it's not like they're. Like all the threats that we've had have been like end of the world.
Yeah,
like,
well, I don't think it's set in that universe.
Yeah, I don't know. Because originally when they announced it, they said it was going to be set in that universe.
Yeah, but I don't.
Kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is set in the Marvel universe. So maybe they changed it halfway through. It seems like it could be funny. It's got a good enough cast. Like Alan Tudyk's in it. He's great. He was the clips I've seen. He was in a lot of them, and he's pretty funny in it. But I just don't know if I would call this a DC show just from what I've seen of it. If anyone else has seen it and enjoys it, feel free to like tell me I'm wrong and maybe recommend an episode or two to me. I'll definitely give it a shot. But yeah, I don't know. I like Vanessa Hudgens. She's fine.
Well, we got one more show we have to talk about.
Do we have to?
We have to.
Like, do I have to?
Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, but I'm not happy about it.
Gotham?
Oh, yeah, that is a show.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I learned an important lesson from watching this show.
We don't have to put Jada Pinkett Smith in everything?
You don't have to. I watched the entire first season of this show, and after I got done, I was like, I don't have to watch everything on TV.
Yeah. The thing is, I think the show could be better than it is. And it's not even that it's like, it's not that it's just complete garbage. Like I think some of the cast are pretty good.
The guy who plays Harvey Bullock is great.
Yeah. Ben McKenzie is, Jim Gordon. He's pretty good. Why doesn't he have a mustache though? I mean, if you're not going to fully commit to the role, then you shouldn't be doing it. But no, he's fine. Marina Baccarin, the girl from Deadpool, whose name I can never say. She's good in it. What I've seen her in. So yeah, I mean, the cast is definitely on up there. I think it's the story that more or less just kind of throws me off. I think from just a regular viewer standpoint, who's just seen like the Batman movies and whatever, I think that is a good show to jump into. But it does, it just throws me off to see little preppy Bruce Wayne walk around and then his entire rogues gallery. Like, I'm just supposed to buy into the fact that his rogue gallery is going to be, 20 to 30 years older than him or something.
Well, a lot of them are the same age as him, like Catwoman and Poison Ivy. They're the same age as he is.
Yeah, but the Riddler's like the Riddler.
Yeah, but he's like in his early 20s on the show.
Yeah, so I can see the Penguin as being older than him. That makes sense to me. I've never once really imagined the Riddler to be, a good 15 to 20 years older than Batman. And like I said, it's just that just kind of takes me out of it. But a lot of this, a lot of it is just, I think it's one of those things is like, I don't necessarily really care where it's going, wherever it goes, because it's just leading into Batman. So there's really it's like we can't kill off really anybody unless this is just something completely different. Then I guess you could, but then I want to see these people I want to see these villains get beat by Batman, and that's not going to happen. So I don't know.
Well, I think there's something you could do with just like the story of the city of Gotham, just because Gotham is an interesting city. Just when, a lot of writers have, when they really delve into the streets and everything of Gotham, kind of feels like a character in its own right. I think the biggest problem with the show is it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like, it's a little bit of an origin story. It's a little bit of a crime drama. It's a little bit of kind of like this gangster thing. It's a little bit of, sometimes it even gets pretty campy. Like, it takes cues from the 60s show, and it doesn't mesh well, any of it.
Yeah. You know what my favorite part about the show is that I've seen?
What?
I really enjoy how bad of a parent Alfred is.
Yeah.
He's like, there's that one, it's a very odd scene, and it's in the first season, I'm pretty sure. He takes Bruce over to that kid's house who was mean to him and then helps him beat the shit out of him. Who does that? He literally beat the crap out of like a 12-year-old kid. I mean, the guy himself's pretty good in the role. I always like when people do that version of Alfred where he's just a complete asshole and he's real sassy. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that just kind of takes me out of it. I think just because of the other stuff I know about Batman. Not saying that's necessarily what they do with him is bad. I mean, have your vision of the character. It's fine. But like you said, they don't really know what they want that vision. They don't know where they want that vision to go. And it's not like, it can be an origin story, but in a way it can't because he's too young. Like there's a lot of Bruce Wayne in these later seasons that I've seen. My roommates watch it pretty religiously, so I'll tune in with them every now and again. And I just, it is him kind of learning the streets and meeting some of these characters who are eventually, going to grow up to be Catwoman or Poison Ivy or whatever. But like I said, unless they're going somewhere completely different with this than just the regular Batman story, nothing that happens in it is really going to matter because we know that, they're all around when he's Batman. And that's the kind of stories we're interested in seeing is, what happens after this. But it's fine. Like I said, it's one of those things that if you enjoy it, good on you. But there are some DC, and we've talked a lot of crap about DC shows today, which is odd. I mean, we like DC a lot. I think that's one thing people don't really, they wouldn't get just from the show alone, is we don't hate DC as much as we let on. I think you and I are just we're just disappointed.
Yeah, I think because, you and me, I think as far as comics go, we're more into reading DC comics than Marvel comics. And we do know that there's, this universe has a lot of great characters and stories to tell, and it's not always adapted as good as it should be. And I think that's where we get disappointed at.
Yeah, and, it is, I don't want to be that guy, and you don't either, who's just like, oh, they didn't do this exactly like the comics, so it's shit. Like, no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff they deviated from that I quite enjoy. But like you said, in the end, I know there's better characters in the writing from the comics, and, they don't have to necessarily do the same storylines or whatever, but just get the overall, themes and emotions of those characters.
Make an attempt to at least, like, you can change stories, but I think if you're adapting a character, you owe it to the fans to capture the essence of who that character is.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason these characters have been popular for decades.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. Like I said, there's been a lot of DC live action news that's, kind of got me back on board. We are getting a lot of Batman stuff, which, could be, I don't know. I love Batman. He's one, like, I really do, but I do want to see these other heroes kind of show up and have their own great stories in movies and television. I don't want this to be a case of a lot of what happens in the animated movies is we have to have Batman and everything now. Yeah. And I get that he sells, obviously, but I think the reason why he sells as much as he does is because he's always there. I think if you gave these other characters a chance and really kind of pushed them, they would be just as popular. And who knows, they might, there's a lot of, I imagine Aquaman will be a pretty big hit when it, Jason Momoa alone gets people hyped. I'm definitely interested to see where this DC stuff goes. But there are some DC shows on that I quite enjoy, Sean, and I can talk about because I know some things about them.
Another great segue by Snoop.
I'm doing my best, Sean. I at least prepared all my segues for the show. That's why I don't have any other notes written down. I just have like on this one page, just like segue. That's all.
You bought a Segway.
Exactly. I would never buy a Segway.
You were tired of walking up and down the sidewalk, so you got a Segway.
I just get so exhausted. I'm like, why can't I just... Is there an easier way to do this?
There's got to be an easier way.
And I couldn't get a hoverboard because they don't come with cup holders. What's the point? But anyway, back to DC. Let's talk about all that fresh DC stuff. The CW verse, Sean, the Arrowverse, as you called it.
Yep.
The Amelverse, as I like to call it, because it's all about Stephen Amell at the end of the day.
The Felicity verse.
Oh God. Listen, yeah. So let's actually see what time we're at, because I don't know how far.
We're good.
We got time?
Yeah.
Sean says we got time, so we got time. Well, let's just kind of go over it as a whole, I guess. We don't need to talk about... We can talk a little bit about each show. Let's go ahead and knock Supergirl out of the way.
It's not good.
That's a show... It's not good. I don't necessarily care about it, but I think that there are all elements of a good show in there. I just don't think that they're being used correctly. I understand that it was a different show with it originally. The first season was originally on CBS.
Yeah.
And then they were just like, hey, we don't know what to do with this because it's not a crime procedural. Our, 50 to, plus demographic doesn't know what it is. And they just gave it over to the CW. I think that was for the better. But even then, I still don't necessarily care about it, which is a waste because I think the actress, Melissa Benoist. Benoist. I want to say Benoist.
Okay.
If she has a problem with it, she can take it up with me. But yeah, I think she really just kind of jumped into that role. It really, she fits the role of Cara Danvers to me.
I think the biggest problem with the show right off the bat is instead of just embracing who Supergirl is, it just copies Superman. Like she's a news reporter and
she wears glasses and her secret identity.
Yeah, and Supergirl, she has her own, characters that associate with her. She has her own universe. Just do that instead.
Yeah, I guess because they did a Supergirl movie like way back when, and that was way off. I think she had magic or something at one point. So there are just I think there are people who get these projects and it's not something they really know. So they either just, they see like, oh, it's Supergirl, so she must just be the female version of Superman. Let's just do that. Or they don't even, maybe they know the story and they just don't think it'll work at all. So they don't embrace it. And, her story's a little different. They at least covered the beginning part where, she's sent with Kal-El, Clark Kent, to look over him on Earth. But she gets trapped in, sometimes it's like the Phantom Zone. Yeah. Sometimes it's just a weird, like, dimension.
Like a wormhole that just, like, time works differently.
Yeah, she gets trapped in there, and then she eventually makes it to Earth, but by then, like, he's older than her. Yeah. And so the one thing she was, sent on Earth to do is just like, well, he's older than me. He's Superman, so I don't, what do I do? So they start out that way, right? And they bring back Dean Cain to play her dad, her adopted dad. That's pretty funny. But yeah, then they just, like you said, they just go into literally Superman's story. It's just like she's a reporter for, it's not the Daily Planet, it's some other random thing. But I don't know. I think the best parts about Supergirl is when she gets to cross over with the other CW properties, because I think like there she's just Supergirl. Mostly every now and again she'll maybe put on the outfit for her secret identity, but there she's just like, hey, I'm Supergirl. And I think that's also a case of, writers over on these projects kind of know this character a little more. But I'd like that show to get better. There's a lot of good stuff going on in it. They got a Martian Manhunter in there now, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the Guardian, I think, because they gave her a Jimmy Olsen, but it's a black guy. It's James Olsen, and now he's the Guardian, I think. So, I mean, there's definitely some good stuff in there, but it's just not being used right. It's not Supergirl, like you said. But there's some good shows on there I enjoy. Arrow was one of them for a while. That's what started out this whole thing.
Oh, Arrow. Yeah, Arrow was kind of a surprise at how good it was and when it first started, because considering the network it ended up being something you weren't expecting it to be.
Yeah, and it's really, like, not only has it kicked off, these other projects wouldn't have happened without Arrow. It kind of had to be the first. I think it had to be the first one, because out of all the CW superhero shows we've had, it is the most grounded as far as his power. He doesn't have powers.
Well, what I was going to say is it's interesting, like, compared to what the show is now, to go back to like seasons 1 and 2 and how grounded it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, Oliver Queen, he's not really the Oliver we know from the comics, although, especially in season 5, they're doing more of a push towards that. But, I mean, Stephen Amell is great in the role.
Yeah. It is one of those things that it kind of came off the back of the Dark Nolan trilogy, and they more or less, they took a lot of cues from that. They gave him, I mean, he the tragic backstory of him getting trapped on the island, that's still, like, that's in the comics, but they do make this show a lot more dark from the beginning. And what I've kind of read of the Green Arrow, he is very similar to Batman. Is, he's a billionaire and he becomes a vigilante, but he is a little more lighthearted at times than, in this, he's more of a Bruce Wayne type.
Yeah.
He kind of puts up this persona of, playboy, rich kid. And then at night, he's just
out killing people,
bashing skulls he kills a lot of people in that first season. Do you think it's odd that we've just kind of gotten to this point 5 seasons in? Well, I guess it was the 4th season when they started, that they finally just caved and called him Green Arrow. Do you think it's just like, oh, that's not cool, let's call him something different? Because he went through a lot of names.
Yeah, because the show started in 2012, and I think you were still at kind of a point where you kind of just let characters be who they are, like, on television for some reason. I think if the show
modernize them.
Yeah, I think if the show came out now, they would just immediately call him Green Arrow.
Yeah.
But it was season 4 that they started calling him Green Arrow finally.
Which, they're not really related, but the quality of the show also went down.
Yep.
With his name finally being implemented. That show took a real hard left turn. And as we've talked about before, Sean, I blame one of my other Hollywood nemesis, Mark Guggenheim. The Googs. I don't like that man. I don't hate him as much as the internet hates him, because the internet really hates him. But I do think he is a little whiny baby at times.
Yeah, definitely.
He's just not, like, his biggest thing is, and the character's been around. He's been involved with the show, but he wasn't the original showrunner. He helped create the character of Felicity Smoke, who was, a big hit when she was introduced. Originally, she was just going to be like a one-off character, and then people responded well to her and gave her recurring status, which I enjoyed that character in the first 2 seasons. A show as dark as this was in these first 2 seasons, it was kind of nice to have that comedic relief there. And it's funny because it does kind of fit into the CW trope of just like really goofy, likable, attractive people that they have a tendency to cast. And so, I mean, yeah, she was great, but then they pushed her to be this, love interest. And that makes a lot of people mad because Green Arrow is famous for his relationship with the Black Canary, who was already in the show. And they really messed that character up. Like, I don't necessarily get upset about a lot of this, like, oh, you broke away from the comics, and I get it, this is their own story and they want to tell it, that's fine, but they built the character of Black Canary up throughout the entire series, and then just to spoilers obviously, but just to get rid of her the way they did, kill her off, is just it's a big FU to just the mythos of Green Arrow and Black Canary.
My problem with Felicity, my biggest problem anyway, is the character got to a point where she was, she could do no wrong. Like anything she wanted to do, she could just pick up and was just an expert at. Nothing was ever her fault. Like everything was always Oliver's fault, even when it didn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's a issue of, they kind of started this in the 3rd season, like you said, with her kind of doing no wrong. And that's one thing, but like they had other characters go out of their way to reassure her that it was not her fault. And that started this weird dynamic of by the time the 4th season came along, Oliver wasn't even the main character of his own show. It was all about her. Like every little subplot, even just like things you thought like, oh, this is just in one episode, but eventually came back to be a big part of the overall season arc. Like with her dad showing up. Like, why am I watching? Like, this isn't what I got on board for the show. Like those first 2 seasons are amazing. I think if you haven't watched any of the CW stuff, Arrow's the best one to kind of jump on board with.
Season 2 in particular is great.
It's amazing. Yeah. You get characters like Slade Wilson, Deathstroke is brought in, who's, greatly portrayed by Manu Bennett, I think is his name. And that's just, and you get backstory. See, a lot of the show, as people watch it know, is the flashbacks of his time when he got trapped on the island of Liang Yu for 5 years before he, comes back and adopts this, this other life as Green Arrow. The flashbacks back in the first 2 seasons meant something, and they were really great the way you would watch an episode, see these flashbacks throughout, and see how these lessons that he learned on the island tied back into the current, what he was trying to do in the episode. But later on, they were just like, they were work to get through in these last 2 seasons that I've watched. And like I said, everything that makes the show great in the first 2 seasons kind of turned against it because of the way it was handled.
Yeah. Well, you haven't seen any of season 5 yet, have you?
I've seen a few episodes of season 5 and I've heard it's really been kind of a good return to form. It's a big
improvement. They definitely made a point to kind of ground the show a little bit more. The flashbacks actually have a purpose now. And it's an exploration, like a more personal explanation of Oliver as a character, about why he is the way he is. And the villain's compelling too, as opposed to like I like Damien Dark in season 4, like the actual actor who played him was good.
I think he really did the best.
Yeah, I would argue that's not really the type of villain that you need to have go up against the Green Arrow, but
no, that whole 4th season is just nonsense. Like, everything about that season makes, like, if you were to watch all these seasons and compare them, to each other, that season is the one that stands out the most from all the other seasons. It's just, there's too much going on. None of it makes sense. It all just, the finale is complete garbage.
Also in season 5, the fights actually get back to being good, because the fighting in season 4 was it was embarrassing at times.
Well, yeah. See, the problem with the choreography, because the choreography in seasons 1 and 2 is really great, and a lot of that I think kind of can be said that it was, again, the show back then was basic. It was Oliver's show. He's more or less, he had, teammates he picked up, but it was him fighting. Then you got, he got a team together, which is, great kind of character development for him as well, to kind of take these people in. But then it's like, we have to have everybody fight. And you just have these odd group, like weird, I don't know, it's a lot of spinning.
Yeah, you'd have, like, the camera would shoot from, like, above, and, like, you'd have, like, 4 or 5 people just spinning in a circle, and the camera just going around them, and it looked awful.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, like, he's the Green Arrow, and this is a big joke about season 4 especially. He rarely uses any arrows. He just hits people with his bow. Who have guns.
Yeah.
Why don't they shoot him?
I
don't know. I'm glad the 5th season has gotten some better reviews, and I want to get back on board with it. But I also think this show is supposed to end after this season,
and it's not gonna. It's gonna start to get renewed for its 6th season, and it's taken a hit. Like, if you look at the ratings, like, by the time you get to now, it's definitely taken a hit.
Yeah, but the thing is about CW is ratings aren't as ratings are obviously important for it, but it is a low budget, these are low budget shows, and they just have to hit a certain quota and they'll go forever. Yeah. Supernatural will never end.
I've tried killing it multiple times.
But yeah, like I said, it's definitely worth checking out those first 2 seasons, especially. And it kicked off another great show, which is probably my favorite of the CW stuff, and that's The Flash. This is probably my favorite one. I think this is definitely this is when these shows kind of got more comic bookish.
Yeah.
They really embraced it to me. Which I think a lot of people know who The Flash is now, because a lot of people this show is really popular. I think this is one of the CW's most popular shows.
I think it is their highest rated show on the network.
Yeah, which originally was Arrow, and then it moved to this. And it makes sense, because whereas Arrow is more dark, and that was kind of the tone for a lot of superhero properties around that time, this kind of embraces the characters, more lighthearted, shows that these characters don't have to be all, doom and gloom.
You can film during the daytime.
They probably just didn't know where the camera was and looked for it all day, and then it's filmed. But this time they had it on them, so they're like, yeah, we'll film during the day. And the special effects are pretty good in this show. Like, it's obviously, it's never going to be as good as a feature film. Anything that, the Flash movie, if it ever gets made, will look better than this show. But it's good. It's good enough. Like, I watched this and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. And I think what makes up for, some of the bad effects is it's great to see some of these characters that we'll probably never get in the movies. Like, you get a lot of the Flash's rogues gallery in basically, one episode that it kind of follows that a monster of the week formula, where every episode he goes up against a different villain from the comics and has to learn a new power or something. And they really they really kind of is one of those things where they kind of rush into it, and they there's a lot of exposition and a lot of hallway talks.
A lot of hallway talks.
It's always talking in the hallway, but it does it goes fast, and it expects you to keep up with it to a point. And I enjoy that, because it's easy enough to pick up on, and it's great to see him use all these powers. You get him to phase through stuff and create this cool wind funnels, this hand funnel things he does. But I think my favorite part about this show is the cast. Would you say the same thing, Sean?
Yeah, Grant Gustin's great as Barry Allen.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't have to. I'm glad they didn't do what they did with Arrow and hey, let's get a really just buff, attractive guy to do stuff on a salmon ladder. He looks like yeah, this is what the Flash would look like.
Well, I think he was only 23 when he was cast, and it's very noticeable that he's a young guy. He's kind of aged a little bit as the show's going on. But they even made a joke of it because first time he showed up was on Arrow, and it was, do your parents know you're out this late? Stuff like that. But who else is great is Tom Cavanaugh is fantastic on the show.
He's the best. He's the best part of the show. I don't want to spoil a lot about what his character does, but he's put into a position that most actors couldn't really handle. He's probably one of the best examples of how good a TV actor can be at his job, because that's a different, that's a whole nother industry for actors. And I think a lot of people who know they kind of necessarily maybe not translate to film as well embrace it, and then some just keep going for it. I think he's really great on TV. He's been on Scrubs a couple times. He's really good in that. He's Ed from that show, Ed. Heard that's good. But yeah, he's definitely the best part of this show, because he has such a range to kind of play with. I know famously in an interview, when he was originally offered a role on the show, he said he didn't want to do it because he's like, I don't want to just play another doctor or scientist guy. And he definitely doesn't do that in the show. He has a lot to, he can play menacing, but also very he's a mentor a lot of times, and also very lighthearted, and just his good comic timing to me. A lot of just jokes work really well with him, and I don't think they would work with a lot of other characters in the show if they said it. But yeah, I think those are definitely my two favorite members of the Flash cast. But his team's pretty good as well. Danielle Pennebaker, is that her name? Yeah, she's Caitlin Snow, who in the comics is Killer Frost. And they kind of went a different take with that. They just kind of, which they've more or less. Again,
you haven't watched any of the current season, have you?
No, I know what they do with
they're moving forward with the whole Killer Frost storyline.
Yeah, but and this is kind of translated. It's interesting how how this character has been received. Has kind of affected her in the comics. It's causing Killer Frost to be more of an anti-hero, whereas before she was just like a straight, B or C D-list villain. And that's always interesting to see. And yeah, I think the thing is, and this is with all CW shows or CW superhero shows, I think the stuff that kind of lacks is, the effects are low budget. The writing is more or less geared for teens. So you do have a lot of characters just acting on just dumb emotions and overreacting to stuff that doesn't really, make sense. But I think they're good at casting people who are likable in these roles. A lot of these characters, even though I don't like an episode or the show or whatever, I like the person playing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, I went back and I rewatched season 1 of The Flash not too long ago. Definitely the relationship between Harrison Wells and Barry Allen, especially when you know the outcome of it, is pretty interesting. Yeah. How he just kind of becomes this father figure to this kid, just, this young man, but he has, he obviously has his own goals in mind. Speaking of watching season 1, who was awful? Eddie Thawne.
It certainly wasn't. Oh, wow. You should have let me answer it first. I was going to say it certainly wasn't Joe.
No, Joe's great.
Because that guy's great. He's great. No one else could wear that. No one else could wear that beanie and not make me upset.
No, but the guy who played Eddie Thawne in season 1 was pretty rough.
Yeah, Rick Cosnett, I think is his name. They casted him because he's pretty.
He is pretty. You know who else is pretty? Candace Patton as Iris West. She gets better as the show goes on, actually.
Yeah, speaking of the first season, she's awful in that first season. But again, that's what I'm saying. That's not her fault. It's not the actress's fault. That's the writing of that character. And I give a lot of these shows I kind of give a pass on for certain things I normally wouldn't to other shows. The writing is, it's good at points, but it does kind of get into this teen drama BS that I just can't. It's not even that I can't relate to it. Just these aren't how people interact at time. And so But I'm glad it's been received as well as it has. I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons, and I'm a little behind on the 3rd season. I think I'm just going to wait until it comes out on Netflix to kind of binge it all. But I like where it's going. Hopefully the CGI gets a better budget, because I want to see more of a certain gorilla, but I can't stand the way he looks half the time.
He appears in a 2-part episode in season 3. And it's very obvious.
You told me.
They spent most of the money on the first part.
You know who's the best CGI character in the show so far? King Shark. He's really good, isn't he?
Yeah, for network television, he doesn't look half bad.
No. Plus, that's a character that no one, like, especially just people who watch the show. Can you imagine not knowing anything about that character and then just seeing him show up the way he does? You're like, what the is that? And that's what I like about the show, is that it is it's aimed toward a bigger audience than just people who read the comics. And so they're getting this, for a lot of people, this is their first experience with a lot of these characters and storylines. And I think that's really great to get a new audience in there. And, both these shows help spin off another show and spin off another. They're just going to keep them coming, I think. But let's talk about the one that came after these. Let's talk about some Legends.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Of the Tomorrows. I'm watching the 2nd season right now. It's on Netflix, and it's a fun romp.
How far into season 2 are you?
I just watched because they recently, in all these shows, Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, and Legends, they just did that crossover with all of them. And I just watched an episode after that. So I'm about halfway through. Yeah,
Legends of Tomorrow is fun. It's not a deep, meaningful show by any stretch, but if you want to turn your brain off and watch it, it's pretty fun, actually.
Yeah, and it's changed in tone, I've noticed, in the 2nd season. It's definitely a lot more like comical and a lot more just kind of, timeline of the week. And that's kind of fun. Like, I think it's the worst part of the 1st season for me is kind of the stuff on the side they had, with certain love interests and just more hallway talks. I hate hallway talks.
Some of the cast members, especially of season 1, were just terrible.
Way off. Yeah, way off.
Hawkwoman and Hawkman, they were awful.
The hot girl, Sean. She's not a woman yet.
Excuse me, hot girl.
She's got to earn that right. But yeah, they were pretty bad. Vandal Savage wasn't menacing enough.
Because when he first showed up in that Arrow Flash crossover, he was actually pretty good. Yeah. And then you get to this point and he's a kind of a letdown.
Yeah, well, I think it's just in all the instances I've seen Vandal Savage, he's just like this. He's just a scary dude. Like, and just this guy was just too small, and that's not necessarily a huge problem. You could be menacing and, terrifying, but I don't know. Even his voice was just kind of like, why are they scared of this guy? But I think he did, do the best with what he was given. But that wasn't that storyline was pretty weak overall. But I like a lot of the characters that are in this show are, some really good recurring characters that I've enjoyed throughout Arrow and the Flash. I think my favorite characters from the Legends of Tomorrow that they worked in there are Captain Cold and Heatwave. And they're played by those 2 actors who were in Prison Break together.
What's great about those 2 guys is they are not afraid to chew scenery one little bit.
No, they really just it's an instance of, I think, because they did Prison Break, which is also, was that also CW or whatever it was before CW? It was on that same network.
I think it was on one of the big 3, like NBC, ABC, something like that.
Yeah, but anyway, like, they've done that kind of show, and I think they know what this show is. Yeah. So they're just they're ready to ham it up.
Yeah, well, and those 2 guys, Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell, yeah, they're like really close friends in real life. So I'm sure they know how to play off of each other pretty good.
Yeah, and they've gotten more. They've only just kind of been. Captain Cold was a bigger player in the Flash, especially, and then Heatwave was there every now and again. So this is the most screen time he's gotten out of this, and I didn't necessarily like that character at first, but I really enjoy him now because, like you said, they chew scenery and they're great. Like even just their cadences of their voices, they're just it's just, it makes me laugh every time they come on screen because I just can't wait to hear what they're going to say.
Nick, you know that I'm the idea guy.
Yeah, they really get into it. And plus their characters are such dickheads. Like, that's what they're there for. And I enjoy that because, you know, it's supposed to be this group of heroes and they were just a bunch of low level criminals who just got some really cool guns. So, and the other, you know, they're adding a lot of new casts in the second season, I've noticed. And again, this isn't, what I really like about this show is, like, you know, like I said before with like Smallville, is we're getting a lot of characters who we're never going to see otherwise. The JSA is a big player in the second season. And, which Vixen's a pretty big part of the second season. Mm-hmm. They cannot nail that character to me.
She's not great.
People have trouble with that character. I've heard they do an animated series on the CW, like a web series, and Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin have done the voices for their respective characters on it. I've heard that's really great. So I might check that out. But yeah, this new Vixen that they've gotten, just even the character of Vixen, like her powers on the show, they don't even use them right. Like, her powers, you know, she has the amulet that gives her the power of the animal kingdom, basically. And she'll use it a lot, but all the powers are the exact same. Like, she'll do it and you see like the astral projection of an elephant. And then it's like, oh, she's really strong. And then she'll do the same thing with a gorilla. It's the same exact thing. Like, the whole point of Vixen is when she takes on, you know, these characteristics and qualities of an animal, is she gets those characteristics and they're unique to each one. This is just like, what animal can we show? And then have her, you know, beat up a person. I think there was one that I saw recently though, where she did she did a dolphin and then went underwater. And that wasn't like, it was at least a little better because she wasn't just punching someone. She was using it. But just the dolphin
I don't think you've gotten to it yet. She does a T-Rex at one point in season 2. Yeah. You know what one of the things I really liked that came out of season 2. So
the Spear of Destiny.
The Spear of Destiny. But so we get introduced to the character of Still, who is like this historian, and you have Adam, who is knows a lot about science, and they form this really close friendship in season 2, and it's pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, I've kind of actually just gotten into that little bromance they have going on. I really like the guy who's playing Steel. I like that he was added to the group, and it makes sense to have him there. That's what I think. A lot of these characters, you know, they originally say like, oh, like this is the reason you're around, to help with these time aberrations, because that's their job, is to go back in time and fix, you know, anomalies and, you know, make sure history doesn't, you know, F itself up. Which, ironically, they mess up a lot of history by doing that, but whatever. But no, a lot of these characters, they're not really there for that reason. It's just like, hey, you guys don't have your own show, so let's bring you on board. And that's fine. But when they added his character, like you said, he's a historian, so it makes sense to have him there because he knows history. So I want to see more of that if they add any more, more characters. I want them to have an actual purpose to be on the team. And I think they all play off each other really well. It is a lot of more characters to juggle in this than, like, you know, Arrow and The Flash. And I think overall the writers are doing okay with that. You know, some get more screen time than others, or some aren't used as well. And you're going to have those issues, especially on a network show like this. But overall, it's a really fun time. And I'm glad I'm enjoying these crossovers as well. That bit where, it's not really a huge spoiler, but the bit where, like you said, Adam is on this show, and the big crossover between all 4 shows, he makes that remark about how Cara Danvers looks like his cousin.
Yeah.
And it's
like a wink.
Because Brandon Routh. Yeah, Brandon Routh played Superman in Superman Returns. Yeah. So they technically are cousins. You know, it's just stuff like that. It's funny. You know, fun little nods. I enjoy Brandon Routh. I think he needs to be the Atom. I don't know if he's not he's certainly a Christopher Reeve kind of Superman.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with Superman Returns. Brandon Routh wasn't one of them, I would say.
No. It's that kid throwing pianos on people. Why is he doing that?
You never did that as a kid?
Only if I got really angry. I certainly never moved anyone's Kryptonite Island, though. I had better manners than that. But yeah, overall, I like these CW shows. I think they are what they are. And, you know, we talk crap on what Iron Fist was. And it's, you know, I feel like for some reason, I don't have problems with these shows the same way I have problems with Iron Fist.
Well, Iron Fist, you have an expectation of quality there. You're coming off of Daredevil and Jessica Jones.
So here you're saying I have no expectations.
That's the secret. You know, like whenever Black Lightning comes out, you kind of know what to expect when that finally drops.
Yeah. Lots of teen drama, hallway talks, and leather suits.
They're just going to they're going to get one show that's just going to be completely filmed in a hallway eventually.
There's so many hallway talks. You remember there's that one episode, I think, of The Flash, where they're all talking to him separately in a hallway, like the same hallway. I think he's just like, I think normally when, you know, they talk to someone, it's because like, oh, I'm having doubts about myself. But in that episode, he was just like so overconfident. They all felt the need to talk to him in that hallway. Get a different set. You got some money now. Build a different hallway. But whatever, they're fun. Well, Sean, that's all the CW I can talk about in one lifetime.
So
this is a long episode.
Well, we still got the old check it out, Snoop.
Oh, we gotta check some stuff out? Yep. All right, I'll check some stuff out with you, Sean. Only because you asked me so nicely. Well, and I'll take care of this one. I mean, you've really been leading the show with all that knowledge you have. So I can at least do this part. Well, for anyone that doesn't know, check it out as a segment where Sean and I, we talk about what we've been checking out. Any of those hot movies, TV shows, comics. I talk about video games sometimes. Sean listens. But yeah, we talk about all that stuff and recommend it to you guys and let you know if it's worth your time. So, Sean, my question to you is, what have you been checking out this week?
Well, I got just one thing. I watched the movie Lion.
Oh, with Dev Patel.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but I always try to make it a point to watch every movie that got nominated for Best Picture. So I watched this.
Well, you certainly mentioned it right now.
Oh, so. Thank you. Yeah. It's not great.
Oh,
it's good.
Really?
It's worth watching. Like I was kind of hoping for something better because the description sounded really interesting. It's based on a true story, but the problem is like the first half. So this Indian boy named Suru, he gets separated from his family on a train. And eventually he gets put up for adoption, and he's adopted by this Australian family. And years later, when he's adult, he kind of like finds his way back to his hometown and his mother. So the first half is about him as a kid. The second half is about him as an adult. And the first half's a lot more interesting than the last half. Like the middle in particular just kind of drags. I kind of wonder why this was nominated for Best Picture. I think, you know, now we have like 9 or 10 best, you know, nominations.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's kind of, I think we're getting to where we feel like we have to have like, you know, certain things we have to nominate. Like we have to nominate a foreign film. And I think that was kind of fell into this slot because, you know, last year we had Brooklyn and this year it was Lion. You know?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But, I mean, it's not terrible. It's worth watching. It's just, because, you know, nothing really interesting is done with the camera work, I would say. I go back and forth on Dev Patel, whether he's a good actor or not.
I think he's a pretty good actor. I just think he's been in a lot of crap or just mediocre films, and that's kind of hurting him because I've seen some stuff that he's really great in. There's a movie, hold on, I need to know the name of it, but basically it was an independent film. No, you know, didn't really get any, you know, coverage or anything, but in it, he was I think he was OCD, and he basically, it's about Zoe Kravitz is in as well. It's about 3 kids who all have, different issues. He's OCD, she's like anorexic, and then the main character has Tourette's, and he's kind of like a supporting character who goes with the main kid with Tourette's. And it's really interesting, one, to see like how people deal with, to see what life is with, these different, handicaps. But he obviously like studied, someone with these issues. Like there's an instance where whenever I think they're on a road trip, they take the car or whatever, and whenever they hit like a bump, he has to get out of the car to see like that he didn't hit anything. When he goes to open a door, he has to open and close it 4 times before he can actually go out. It's just stuff like that. And he plays that character like straight. Like this isn't a comedic film. Parts of it, it's parts of it like black comedy, but overall it's like, it's pretty rough to see someone with this, this problem. And I think he really hits it home. But let me hold on.
Well, like I said, it's just the middle of this film really drags. The last 20 minutes are good, especially the moment, because one of the people that stars in this movie is Google Earth. Because that's kind of like how
was she?
Well, that's how he finds his like hometown, is he like gets on Google Earth and kind of like goes through like all these rail lines in India to kind of like track down like the path that he took when he was a child. But like in that scene where he finally finds the rail line and he's tracking it slowly back is actually pretty good. Also, I kept wondering why this movie was named Lion. And it's not until the very end you find, and I guess this isn't a spoiler, it's not until the very end you find out that his name, Saru, is the Bengali word for lion. So it's like, question answered.
I thought the twist was going to be that he found a lion, or it turned out to be the tiger that left him left him at that boat in Life of Pi. The Road Within is the movie I'm talking about. It's a young man with Tourette syndrome who works on a road trip with his recently deceased mother's ashes. Yeah, that's what it was. He's going on a road trip to spread his mom's ashes, and they, come with him. It's actually a pretty good movie that, it's an independent film, so no one's really going to have heard of it, but I thought it was a pretty good. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he gets something. I feel like he could do something really great if he's given it, something to work with. I mean, certainly not Chappie. It's a waste of his talents. Do you think he looked better in robot form than in human form in Chappie?
You want me to admit something here?
That you like Chappie?
I don't completely hate Chappie. I think it's fine.
That movie sucks.
The
movie is just, I don't know what that movie is, and I don't think it knows what it is either.
It's not great or anything, but I think it's fine.
That's my check it out. Don't check out Chappie. If you're going to watch any of Neil Blomkamp's films, just watch District 9, and then just, dream that one day there will be a District 10.
Snoop.
I would like to see
Snoop. What have you been checking out, Snoop?
I've been checking out Legends of Tomorrow season 2, like I said. Okay. But I think what I'm gonna check out here in the next week, is my friend recently did a short film, that he wrote and directed, and he's holding a festival night for it, next week, in was it May 6th, I believe. So not next week. Sometime soon is my point. And his film is a short film. It's called The Heckler. It's basically about a guy who he goes to do like a comedy routine and gets heckled off stage, and he starts imagining the guy who heckled him just following him around, and just kind of him dealing with that throughout the film. It's only like 15 minutes or whatever, but yeah, it's pretty good. I read the script. I've seen some of the shots, and it's got some pretty good moments in it. Just to see where this heckler is just going to pop up At one point, he's just like laying in the bed with him, and they both have their shirts off or something. It's pretty good. I think he did a good job on it. But yeah, I'm going to check that out. If anyone wants to know more details about that, if you live in the local area, Athens area, I'll send that out when I have more details on my Twitter at Snoop_Lynch. But also what I think I might check out, I was going to check out Lion until you said all that.
No, it's worth watching.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it. But no, I think I'm going to, hold on. I'm trying, you know what I want to check out? I want to see if when they're going to play Colossal in a theater near me. That's what I want to check out. That's the movie with Anne Hathaway, where basically there's a monster roaming around, and then she finds out that like she can control it. So like anything she does, it more or less the monster does the same thing. So it's like, oh, if Anne Hathaway scratches her head, as I imagine she sometimes does when maybe she's thinking whatever, then the monster will also scratch his head. So I don't know. I'd like to see where that goes. Apparently, her and the director are friends. That's one of the reasons the movie got made, is because Anne Hathaway came on board. It's been out in other places around me, but nowhere like close enough for me to go. So hopefully it'll come to a theater near me and I can go check it out. But yeah, the synopsis is: a woman discovers that severe catastrophic events are somehow connected to the mental breakdown from which she's suffering. I hope she'll be okay.
I hope so too.
Yeah, I enjoy Anne Hathaway. I don't like, not in everything she's in. She definitely has been miscast in some stuff. I really don't know what she was doing in Interstellar, but I don't know a lot of what happened in that movie. I think there were bookshelves, and corn.
Lots of corn.
And sadness. But yeah, anyway. No, I think she can, I think she's good in these kind of smaller roles though. But also like I enjoyed her Catwoman as well.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that motorcycle she had. She had those cool goggles that were also cat ears.
Yep.
What was that about? But yeah, so I'm going to check out that and then let you know how it is if I ever get to see it. Well, that's all my checkings out, Sean. Oh, and I'm still playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So if anyone wants to talk to me about that, please do, because I love that game.
I'll try and find somebody.
Appreciate that, Sean. You're always looking out. But I think that's enough for the show. We've taken up enough of my good time, enough of your good time, enough of Kyle's good time, who, plot twist, has been sitting here the whole time. Shout out to Kyle. He's a big supporter of the show. But yeah, so if you like this episode and you want to check out any of our other episodes, you can find those on SoundCloud and iTunes. We're going to put them on YouTube. I forgot to put the last episode on there, so I'll put that one and this one on there. If you'd like to leave us a review on iTunes, we greatly appreciate that. Let us know how we're doing. If you want to get in touch with me or Sean, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Snoop_Lynch. Sean's at the first Sean, but he doesn't like Twitter that much, so he started up a Gmail account, theunnecessarygentleman@gmail.com. So if you guys would like to send us an email or a letter, please do. Maybe give us some ideas for some shows that we could talk about. Tell us what I'm doing right. Tell us what Sean's doing wrong.
Wow.
And yeah. No, you're pretty good, Sean. It's fine. But yeah, so hope you join us next week for another episode. We're gonna do something, I think. Do we have anything?
It's your turn.
It is my turn. I don't know.
Something
I'll gladly
festive.
take some my festive. Is there a holiday coming up?
No, it's just be festive.
Arbor Day?
Just be festive.
Is it Arbor Day already?
I hope so.
Yes. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But yeah. So I said, until next time, guys, have a good week, and we'll see you later. All right. Bye.
Bye.